All right. All right, let's bring in our guest, the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. Mr. Taiwo Oyedele joins us live from our Abuja studios. Mr. Oyedele, I can see you're smiling, you're relaxed, like, oh, finally, at least the first step is covered. Let's begin with asking you, how do you feel?
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Kayode. Thank you, Bukola. So I feel, first, a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. I also feel more hopeful about the country. And of course, I'm happy that we're here. It's been a very difficult journey. And thanks to all our stakeholders, including Channels TV, you guys were very supportive. So now that we're here now, I think the foundation has been laid. But we're not under any illusion that the house is ready. If you're homeless and you manage to put up a foundation, you're still homeless. But you've made a very important progress. And therefore, just building on that is the next phase, and we're excited to embark on this journey together.
Mr. Oyedele, we'll still get into some of those questions asked by people, but this was a very interesting journey for you, right? Coming from the private sector, you were tasked with this very huge assignment, and you saw politics play out at the highest level. This went, there were regional, sentiments coming in, political sentiments coming in, even religious sentiments coming in. Was there a point where you thought to yourself, what did I get myself into? I mean, I'm a tax guy. What is going on here? Did you ever get to that point?
No, I think there wasn't any point where I thought maybe I shouldn't have done this. But I have to also admit that I did not see the level of controversy, the level of misinformation, deliberate manipulation, conspiracy theories. I didn't see it to that extent. So I wasn't prepared for all of that. But there was no time when I thought that, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done it. I think Nigeria, for me, is worth all the risk. It's worth all the sacrifices. Because it's not just enough to sit back and complain and analyze. Some people have to step forward to take that risk. And that's how nations are built. So I'm actually very happy. And I consider myself privileged to have the opportunity to serve with my knowledge and skills, along with my over 100 members. People don't see their faces, and that's because we agreed that not to have conflicting messages. I'll be the one speaking for the committee, but certainly not the work that I did alone. It's the work of a lot of Nigerians, including 45 students from 22 universities across Nigeria who help us with research, their insights, because apart from making this inclusive, we also thought that if we are building the Nigeria of tomorrow, we should have the people that will be here tomorrow to be part of that co-creation of the solutions.
Okay, so let's get right into it now, sir. There are 4 laws: the Nigeria Tax Law, the Nigeria Tax Administration Law, the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Law, and the Joint Tax Board Law. So help us understand the amendments. A lot of people have been asking, okay, so with the establishment of the Nigeria Revenue Establishment Law, which now makes FIRS NIS, what happens then to customs? And perhaps you can also walk us through some other amendments as well, and explain our new realities in line with the amendments.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bukola. So first, I would say the most important or the most critical of those 4 tax laws is the Nigerian Tax Act. And if I want to summarize it, I would say is the law about fair taxation. Fair taxation because if you are poor, you shouldn't be paying taxes. In fact, our hope and aspiration is that our country will get to a point where people who are living below poverty line are given some support by the government so they can meet their basic needs. So not taxing poverty is fairness. We also have the provisions to cater for small businesses. We have, depending on who is giving you the data, somewhere in the region of 30 to 40 million small businesses. The vast majority of them are nano businesses. Put it differently, they're just people hustling to make ends meet. They have no ability to pay taxes to the government. So in the tax law as well, they have been exempted from all manners of taxes. We want them to do business, want them to grow, and then when they scale and become bigger, they will have the capacity to pay taxes. We also have large businesses. Large businesses would also have a relief in terms of their tax burden. There's a provision in that tax law to reduce the corporate tax rate from 30% to 25%. Once the time is right, Mr. President, we issue an order for the commencement of that reduction. In addition to that, we have relief for businesses to reduce their cost of doing business. For example, if you put up a factory, or you buy any equipment or any assets, or you even pay for services to be able to do your business, any VAT you pay, you will get it back from the government, essentially bringing down the cost of your business, which hopefully you can also pass some of that to consumers in form of lower prices, but also make more profit. We want you to be more profitable so you can expand your business and employ more people. In terms of basic consumptions, like food, like education, healthcare, accommodation, transportation, we've also removed the VAT on these items so they can become more affordable. So essentially, in a nutshell, that Nigeria Tax Act is about fair taxation. It's also very progressive in the sense that the high net worth individuals will pay a little bit more, which is right for you to have a progressive system. Now, that is fair taxation. What taxes do we impose and how do we collect those taxes and from who? The Nigeria Tax Administration Law is the one that tells us about how we administer our taxes. In other words, these taxes we have imposed, how are we going to collect them? Who is going to be collecting them? So, and then we try to have some uniformity in terms of standard across Nigeria for federal, state, and local government. So this is the Tax Administration Law. The third one is the Nigeria Revenue Service. This is the law repealing the Federal Inland Revenue Service Establishment Law and introducing the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Law with a broader mandate, essentially to help us harmonize tax collections, to help us with collaboration, to also help us to try and put some technology adoption and innovation into how we collect taxes. The long-term objective for the Nigerian Revenue Service is to be the sole agency collecting anything that looks like a tax or a levy, such that government agencies other than the Nigerian Revenue Service will focus on their primary mandates. I know you mentioned the Nigerian Customs Service in your comments. At the moment, the law will not transfer the obligations of collecting taxes by the Nigerian Customs Service to the Nigerian Revenue Service, but the framework has been established. There's some taxes that have been transferred already in this law, such as royalty on, petroleum and mining, will now be collected by the Nigerian Revenue Service. But the framework has been created for the others to take, that same direction in the nearest future. And finally, is the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Law. This is how we collaborate as a country. The Joint Revenue Board brings all the revenue authorities across Nigeria together under one platform with a very broad mandate for them to help us with coordination, policy harmonization, and exchange of information. For example, if you live and work in Lagos and you also have a home in, let's say, Ogun State, you cannot play tax authorities against themselves and tell Lagos State you live and work and pay taxes in Ogun. Say the same thing to Ogun. You end up not paying taxes. There's also the other aspect to it that in some cases, you live in one state, you pay your taxes, you have your tax clearance certificate, and you want to go to another state to buy land, for example. And they say, well, we don't care that you have paid taxes as well, you must pay to us. And they collect that tax again, against the Constitution and against the law. So this collaboration will address all of that, including the setting up of the tax ombudsman. I'm quite excited about that because for a very long time, we left our vulnerable taxpayers, especially small business owners, out in the cold, that they do not understand the tax law. They have a lot of tax burden on them. They cannot hire lawyers and accountants to defend them. And whenever they have situations to deal with tax officers, they're exploited. That will be a thing of the past. Apart from being exempted now from a lot of taxes, those of them that have any taxes to pay, we have the advocates to protect them. You don't have to speak Queen's English. You don't have to write a formal letter. Our plan is to even set up call centers, and you can speak in your language, and help will be on the way. So essentially, these are the summary of those 4 transformative tax laws that we now have.
All right, Mr. Oyedele, I mean, you've spoken highly of some of these, well, expected outcomes from these laws, but it's one thing to have the law, it's another thing to really have the implementation look like what the law is intended to achieve. But I think we should maybe take a listen to what President Bola Tinubu said, because this has been one of the, I think, major goals of his government in the past few years. So let's listen to what he said, and I'll come back to ask you that all-important question which one of our viewers asked.
What you have provided is leadership and courage in the face of mounting dispute. Nowhere in the world that tax reform will be any easy. Some tax bills that might read in your textbooks might even sound sometimes like reading in English in Japanese. Very difficult, twisted equations, reverse ideologies. At the end of the day, what you must land with is the hope to develop the people and show the right character towards the destination. We are in transit. We have changed the road. We have changed some of the misgivings. We have opened the door for new economy, business opportunity. We are showing that Nigeria is truly, truly ready and open for business. Easy in, easy out.
So that's the president raising a major concern, about taxes. And I mean, you're reading it, but you're not understanding it in that sense. And I think it's been one major challenge. Today now you have VAT being charged, you have a service charge, and you're wondering, I thought VAT was some sort of consumption tax. And then you see all of those items on your receipt. So the tax laws are meant to resolve all of that, I believe. But I want to link the implementation also with the effect it will have on people, which one of our viewers asked, saying that this would make you pay through your nose. There are a lot of people who see this as a setup, right, to make them pay through their nose. So maybe speak to the implementation bit and the concerns of people who think they'll be paying through their nose.
Thank you, Kayode. The real impacts of this reform will come from the implementation and how well we're able to implement, how open and transparent we are with the implementation, and just acknowledging and recognizing that there's no law that is perfect, and just keeping our eyes to the issues as they arise and make corrections whenever it becomes necessary, keeping in mind the ultimate goal of this being about the Nigerian people, about growth, about efficiency, and shared prosperity. I do fully understand, and that's part of what we found out in the course of putting these laws together. We did a lot of research, a lot of interviews, analysis, and in one of the surveys that had been done, even before our committee was set up, that had the privilege of sharing that roundtable under the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, on tax perception and tax morale, it was very clear that Nigerians do not trust government. They also do not trust the tax authorities. Nearly 4 in 5 adults in Nigeria will rather evade their taxes than pay those taxes. This is evasion. They don't even feel bad saying that I won't pay my taxes. You cannot build a society like that because the social contract is broken. And we also recognize that you cannot enact or decree trust into existence. You have to earn it. And you earn it first by being open and transparent, by involving people in how you create the solutions to the problems, and even identifying those problems in the first place, and also linking tax revenue to the delivery of social services to the people. Because after all, the essence of tax collection is to be able to deliver on the social contract. So we are mindful of all of that, and we believe that the trust process has started, and we need to sustain it. I have seen many times that I will share a post on social media because one of your comments, Kayode, is the fact that, and also alluding to what the president said, is that sometimes it can be very difficult. In many of the laws, one of the reasons why we decided that we will not be amending the existing laws, but we'll repeal them and write new ones, was that even the ones that were still relevant, they were written in very complicated languages. Apologies, it was almost like reading King James Version, right? So it's already hard to pay taxes. Trying to figure out what the law is saying shouldn't be more difficult. So having addressed that, we recognize that, like I was trying to say, if I put up a post, I try to keep it simple, don't use complicated, grammars. And the post will say that small businesses are now being exempted from paying taxes. And you see comment that says, you want to kill Nigeria with taxes, and you wonder, did they read it at all? Or they just assume that if you're doing a tax reform, you're trying to tax them more. This is not one of those things where you say, oh, we're just trying to deceive the Nigerian people. If we are going to remove VAT from items, it will be removed. If we say low-income earners should not pay PAYE, from January end of the month where you collect your salaries, you will see that your net take-home pay has gone up. So there's nothing about deceiving Nigerians about this. It's something we are doing together. We're very intentional about the implementation. And that's why the commencement date has been pushed forward to January 1st, 2026. That's giving us, 6 months to plan, to develop capacity, to develop guidelines, to issue regulations, so that we can have those consultation and engagement and be prepared as a people for the effective implementation, which is where the true impacts will come from.
So let's go to some of the things you've raised. I don't know whether those provisions have been amended, but first, I'm going to ask 2 questions in one. One has to do with, I know you've talked about there'll be a time when these area boys that collect levies on the road will no longer be there. I'd like you to respond to that as that's how practical that can be and how this law addresses it. On the other hand, I'm going to be throwing some slides of the Nigerian Tax Administration Act now, okay, a law now, where small businesses must be aware. If my producer can throw it up for us. So we'll get to see, according to, by the bill, I don't know what it is in the law now, section 98, 99, 100, and 101. They'll be rolling. I'm sure you wrote this law, so you're familiar with it. What the businesses need to know. We put the blue as to what the authorities will do and the consequences for not allowing the authorities to do their job in red. So 98, that has to do with the tax authority meeting you to, I think, deploy technology after 30 days if you refuse about ₦1 million default. And then if it is deployed, fiscalization, and you don't use it, there's also a consequence to it. And the issue of the obligation, deduction, and withhold, there are a couple of things. But I'd like you to speak through it. So 2 questions in one. What this provision means for businesses. On the other hand, how do we get the boys off the streets and utilize them more properly?
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. So yes, in one of the comments that I made, maybe even several times, I had said that part of the plan is to get both the non-state actors that collect taxes and levies, of course, not going to the government, but as far as people are concerned, they're paying taxes because the government or the state allowed that to continue. And in many cases as well, these are officers of the state, the local government, that collect all manner of taxes in very unorthodox way, sometimes physically assaulting the people they want to collect taxes from, taking their properties away from them. And we wanted to address that. And we know that this is not something to address by writing a new law that says from now on nobody should collect. We believe that there's also a practical dimension to it. I wouldn't say to you that the laws that were signed yesterday have now addressed that, no. Because some of these issues actually have their roots in the Constitution. The Constitution, for example, empower local governments under the 4th schedule to collect some taxes that are no longer relevant or ideal today, like produce tax, like bicycle tax, even wheelbarrow tax, television levies, radio license are still in the Constitution. So we can't write a law that now says from now on you can no longer collect. It will be unconstitutional. So what we've done, which is still in progress, is to have sent those recommendations to the National Assembly as part of the process for amending the Constitution that is still ongoing. The same thing to the question that, or the issue that Kayode raised earlier on, between you pay value-added tax, you also pay consumption tax in some states. That also has not been addressed by these laws that have been signed, because the power to collect those taxes haven't been addressed. Again, we have a proposal to the National Assembly to address this in the Constitution. In the meantime, our view is that we can look at these individuals that are being used to collect those taxes, including illegal ones, and see how to incorporate them into the system in a more refined way. Maybe give them some little training, give them some uniform, stop them from collecting cash. So they only just, help people to know how to pay on their mobile phones, and the evidence of what you've paid, even if you are a truck driver, for example, and you need to pay 2,000 naira, can you just do star something and pay your 2,000? And that person tells you how to press the star something in case you don't know. The receipt comes on your phone and you can show them and you can continue your journey. And that will be our practical process towards getting rid of this, such that in no time, those people will be off the streets completely. So that's the plan we have for those issues about touting and how they collect taxes that is not very appropriate for this modern time. So that is the issue about the touting.
Speaking of what the law addresses, or what you have plans to address in the near future, let's look at the taxes that impact on agriculture produce. And I know at the time of consultation and, work of reform on the tax bills, you had spoken to it, but I don't know if there's anything in the new law that covers the elimination of those illegal checkpoints through transportation of agriculture produce that now impacts negatively on the high cost of food staples when they get to the market. Is there anything in the law that addresses it?
Yes, to a large extent. What we believe is that even though if the Constitution says you can collect, XYZ taxes like produce tax, it also indirectly gives you the power not to collect. Like if the local government decide that we're not collecting these taxes on produce, nobody's going to take them to court. So what we have done is to start with that conversation about why can't you just voluntarily decide not to collect while we are fixing the law. And you may be aware that just last week or thereabouts, at the last Governors Forum meeting, there was an agreement by the governors to stop this collection of taxes on produce, which is one of the reasons why the prices of food items are going up significantly, particularly in urban areas. The difference between the food inflation between rural and urban area in Nigeria is in the region of 400 to 500 basis points. That's about 4 to 5%. Generally, the difference between the price of food item in the rural area and in cities is usually attributable to transportation, and that should be less than 100 basis points. So you can imagine the big impact that all these illegal taxes, and some of them legal, are having on the prices of foods in particular. So this is the first step that we are taking now. And the second step, like I said before, will be to address this from the Constitution itself, such that the reform will be then institutionalized, and there will be no risk that somebody will wake up tomorrow or the day after and decide to introduce this in a different form or shape. So it's still a process that is ongoing, and hopefully we get there sooner rather than later.
Well, it's a lot of hopes, really, and I think it's even maybe a bit more concerning for people because of the experiences they've had in the past. And I want you to again speak to this. What is different about this new regime that we're getting into? Because it's still the same people that implemented the previous laws that would implement this same law. I mean, we're not changing these systems in that sense. We're not changing these institutions in that sense. So, Mr. Oyedele, yes, we're very optimistic. Yes, we're really hopeful. But have we really thought it through, particularly for those who would implement it? Because you go to some tax offices and, I mean, you know the things that go on there. If you're not able to do certain things, you wouldn't get through. If you're not able to compromise, you won't get through. It's still these same people that would implement these laws. Is that a concern for you? And is that something that you're able to also fix?
Yes, it's a concern for us, but I would also say it was a major consideration that was taken into account in developing the new tax laws. We know the human factor. We are who we are. We have a lot of very patriotic, honest Nigerians, but unfortunately also we have a good number of people who don't mean well for the country, and they're just so selfish and they will do anything to enrich themselves, to the detriment of society. One of it is the corruption level, sometimes coming from the tax offices, sometimes coming from taxpayers, and even sadly, sometimes coming from tax professionals who are supposed to help in the system of compliance with taxes. So what we have done is to design a system that is not appealing to your conscience, because that hasn't worked. We have designed a system that will track what you're doing. We're not going to be relying only on what you tell us. We'll be taking third-party information. For example, people can lie about their income, and most people do, in an environment where they don't seem to see the benefits of paying taxes. But people cannot hide their spending. So if you make a lot of money, you're likely to want to buy a car. You can't hide the car. You will build a house, even if you don't want to tell us where your house is. You will need electricity, so you ask the electricity company to connect you, and that's data. You're likely to have a mobile phone, and you make calls and use data, and that gives us intelligence about your level of income and so on and so forth. So for the tax agent, that's the tax professional, will be tracking what they're doing. They must demonstrate not only technical competence to do what they're doing, but ethical compliance as well. And there'll be consequences when they fail to do that, including de-accreditation, so they can never support or help anybody to file returns as tax consultants. For the tax officers, we're limiting the human interaction. Imagine you can do everything you have to do with the tax authorities without knowing where the offices are, because you don't need to. There were days that if you wanted to collect money from your bank, we went to the same bank branch where we opened the bank account. We collected tally numbers and waited for hours, so it would be our turn to collect money. Today, I don't even want to know the branch of my bank. I just do everything online. So there's a lot of self-service in that, new laws, including the adoption of technology to simplify what we do, multiple channels for everything. I know one of the questions that you asked before was, adoption of technology and the penalty on companies and all of that. It's because we know that some people are reluctant, and there's high level of evasion that if we don't address it, the system will never work. Okay. So that's why you are going to be compelled to adopt technology so we can know what you're doing, and that way we can have an equitable and fair system for all of us.
All right. Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, super proud of the work you've done. I'm sure a lot of Nigerians are proud. I know you've gotten a lot of hits, but congratulations. When you look at Oronsaya report, Uwe's report, and how even the 2014 confab, how it ended. But you, in 2 years, you've gotten it done. It's now law, and it's just a question of time. So congratulations once again to you and your entire team. We hope this will revive the country and make government even more accountable. Taiwo Oyedele is the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. We call him the tax man. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break and we'll shift gears away from taxation to politics. You saw the video earlier. Yes, on Wike, the FCT minister and his political godson, Governor Fubara, and the president. Looks like there's reconciliation. So what next? The former national legal advisor of the PDP will be joining us to explore that conversation, as well as the wrangling in the NWC. Stay with us in just a moment.